Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer and open up the Strategic Manager's Toolkit. Listen, as accounting students and future business leaders, just crunching the numbers, yeah, that's not going to cut it anymore. You really need to understand the underlying strategy driving those numbers. So today, we're demystifying the essential frameworks that actually shape business success. Whether you're analyzing some massive global corporation or checking out a scrappy, fresh startup, these are the absolute core concepts that help leaders make sense of the chaos and chart a path forward. We've got a packed agenda today, so we're going to move fast. We'll be hitting 3 foundational tools: competitive positioning with Porter's generic strategies, value creation through the business model canvas, and then evaluating the environment with a SWOT analysis of Sage LT. All right, tool 1, positioning, using Porter's generic strategies. How exactly does a company position itself to survive in a crazy crowded market? Let's get into it. Strategy actually maps out beautifully on a really simple 2x2 grid. Think of it kind of like a compass. On the vertical axis, you've got scope. Are we going after a huge, broad market or a tiny, specific niche? And then on the horizontal axis, we have competitive advantage. Are we going to win by being the low-cost option or by offering something totally unique? This setup gives us 4 very distinct strategic quadrants to play in. Let's start in the top left with cost leadership. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's all about dominating that massive, broad market by just being the absolute lowest cost producer out there. It's a ruthless game of massive volume and incredible economies of scale. Basically, you serve everyone and you do it cheaper than anyone else possibly can. Now flip that. Over in the top right, we have differentiation. You're still going after that big broad market, right? But instead of slashing prices, you're standing out with something incredibly unique. You definitely don't have to be the cheapest here. In fact, you get to command a premium price because your customers absolutely value the product and will willingly pay more for it. But hey, what if you just want to ignore the broad market completely? That's where you drop down into the bottom quadrants with focus strategies. You're targeting a highly specific niche. And within that little niche, you either use a cost focus, literally being the cheapest option for that one specific group, or a differentiation focus, giving them a highly specialized premium product tailored exactly to them. Okay, but you got to watch out for this massive warning zone right dead in the center. We call it being stuck in the middle. It happens when a company tries to be all things to all people. They kind of try to do low cost, they kind of try to be unique, and they end up achieving neither. It's basically strategic no man's land, and you just become shark bait for the competitors who actually had the guts to pick a clear lane. Moving right along. Once your strategic position is locked in, we need to know how the business actually creates value day to day. Enter tool 2, the business model canvas. Before we get bogged down in the mechanics of the canvas, you really just need to ask yourself 3 overarching questions. 1, desirability. Do customers actually want this thing? 2, feasibility. Can we realistically pull it off and deliver it? And 3, which is absolutely crucial for us accounting folks, viability. Does it actually make financial sense? Those 3 big questions break down into 9 building blocks. We're talking everything from your customer segments, relationships, channels, and value proposition on one side, over to your key activities, resources, and partners on the other. And all of this sits right on top of your cost structure and revenue streams. It's a living, breathing document. You tweak one little block and it ripples through the whole entire model. You know, theory is great and all, but let's anchor this to reality. We're going to look at a live case study directly from our sources. Yep, the streaming giant itself, Netflix. When you apply the canvas to Netflix, you just answer those exact component questions. Customer segments? Global consumers who are totally craving on-demand entertainment. Value proposition? Unlimited ad-free streaming. Boom. And how do they actually deliver that value and build customer relationships? Well, through super seamless apps and those highly addictive, totally personalized recommendation algorithms. See, the canvas forces you to define the exact nuts and bolts of value creation. All right, on to tool 3, evaluation. Now we zoom out to evaluate both the internal and external environments using a true strategic classic, the SWOT analysis. This grid is super straightforward. It cleanly divides our evaluation. Up top, we have our internal capabilities, our strengths and weaknesses. These are the things we actually have control over. Then, on the bottom, we've got our external environmental factors, opportunities and threats. Those are the harsh market realities we just have to deal with and respond to. But listen, here is what almost everyone gets wrong about SWOT. Its real power isn't just making a nice little list. It's about actual strategy development. We are looking for matching, which is taking our internal strengths and directly plugging them into external opportunities. Or, and this is even better, conversion. Literally taking an internal weakness and flipping it into a strength. Or turning a scary external threat into a brand new opportunity. That right there, that is where the strategic magic actually happens. To really see matching and conversion in the real world, let's step into the shoes of a strategic advisor for Sage Limited. They're a South African renewable energy supplier. Let's kick this off with a genuinely massive internal strength, 95%. Sage generates a staggering 95% of the wind-powered electricity in all of South Africa. They run the country's only fully operational wind farm at Kliphuel, pumping out 1,000 megawatts a year. I mean, as far as strategic capabilities go, that is absolutely colossal. However, there is a glaring weakness here. They operate in a heavily regulated industry, but the directors themselves openly admit they lack in-depth knowledge of the governing legislation. Think about that. Dominating an industry when you don't even fully understand the rules you're playing by. That is a massive, super risky internal vulnerability, especially when we start talking about compliance and financial liability down the line. And externally? Well, it's a pretty complex picture. The opportunities are amazing. There's this incredible global pressure right now to reduce carbon footprints, and the South African market is largely underdeveloped. But the threats are incredibly real. We're talking huge research and construction costs, incredibly fierce competition, and, believe it or not, the very real adverse effects these massive wind turbines have on local bird life. Which brings us full circle. You've got the data, you see the board. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought for your toolkit. If you were advising Sage Limited today, how would you use conversion? How do you take that massive legislative weakness and flip it into a strategic opportunity before the competition catches up? Think about it. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.